times to those that have chosen to share the suffering of others despite their own lives of ease and comfort. And we will hear from these young leaders of their vision and aspiration at the closing of this conference. It is this synthesis of disparate forces and realities, survivors and decision makers, leaders of today and tomorrow, civil society and government, media and academia. It is in this coming together of widely divergent stakeholders that this conference hopes to contribute in significant measure to a broad, knowledgeable, inspired, and ultimately effective movement for the prevention of genocide. The compelling theme of this conference is a befitting start for the series of Eckenberg Family Conferences on Human Rights. It is made possible by the vision and generosity of Gordon and Penny Eckenberg, whose relentless enthusiasm has made them not only founders and donors, but also dear friends of the faculty. We are grateful for their commitment and support. We have also benefited from the contributions, hard work and dedication of other institutions and individuals, too numerous to mention. I do wish, however, to gratefully acknowledge the support of the government of Sweden, not least because this conference builds on the 2004 Stockholm International Forum on the Prevention of Genocide. At the invitation of Prime Minister Göran Persson, I had the privilege of participating in that intergovernmental forum, as did many in the audience this evening. And in a sense, this conference is the answer of global civil society to that event. It is befitting that this conference be held in Canada, given the emphasis that we have placed in our foreign policy on human security and the responsibility to protect. There is a long way to go before we can translate our commendable principles into effective leadership and action on the international stage. Our performance on Rwanda, on Darfur, has not been commensurate with our self-image as a nation of peacekeepers and moral leaders. But as a multicultural society defined by respect for human rights and globalism, we must shoulder our burden as responsible citizens and ensure that such issues are brought to the forefront of the political agenda. In this connection, I wish to recognize with gratitude the support of the Government of Canada and Prime Minister Stephen Harper's assurance in his letter to the conference that our deliberations will contribute to a much-needed global debate on the critical issue of genocide and provide direction to policy leaders. I also wish to recognize the support of the Government of Quebec and the presence in our midst of Premier Charest's representative, Mr. Lawrence Bergman. It is befitting that this conference be held at McGill University at a time of great renewal and development in its history, as one of the leading and most cosmopolitan academic institutions in the world. We will have the benefit of Principal Monroe Blum's welcome address shortly. And it is no accident that it falls on the law faculty to organize this event, given its long-standing and distinguished commitment to human rights and international law. We will hear shortly from my Dean, Nicolas Cassira, and my esteemed colleague, Professor René Provost, Director of the Center for Human Rights and Legal Pluralism. Suffice it to say that we at the Faculty of Law have a privileged heritage built by the likes of Professor John Humphrey, the Canadian pioneer and drafter of the 1948 UN Universal Declaration on Human Rights. It is in keeping with this venerable tradition that we, as an institution of higher learning with a commitment to social action, have taken it upon ourselves to make a meaningful contribution to this pressing human rights struggle. I should also gratefully acknowledge the contributions to this conference of our distinguished colleague, Professor Frank Chalk of the Montreal Institute of Genocide Studies, Concordia University, and the collective wisdom of our advisory committee, including the Honorable Erwin Kotler, who will address you shortly, Ambassador Raymond Chrétien, Commissioner Jennifer Stoddart, and Mr. Tony Comper. And as is often the case, It has been the hard work of those behind the scenes that have made an event of this scale possible, for which we all owe a debt of gratitude to the Executive Director of the Human Rights Center, Dr. Nandini Ramanujam, and her invincible army of students and volunteers. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, having served in a previous life as a UN war crimes prosecutor in places like Bosnia and Rwanda, and having encountered a legacy of religious persecution and exile as a Baha'i in my native Iran, I've witnessed the depth of cruelty that human beings are capable of. But I've also seen the immense power of human nobility, a nobility that is embodied by the remarkable participants in this historical gathering, and all those that have made the effort to be here this evening. I'm greatly honored to serve as the chairman of this conference in the presence of such distinguished speakers and panelists, among whom there are Nobel Prize laureates, Pulitzer Prize winners, acclaimed scholars and authors, illustrious statesmen and diplomats, media personalities, and other prominent figures. But the challenge of this conference speaks to each and every one of us, irrespective of our capacity or means, to arise and make our contribution to this important struggle. In doing so, we can vindicate the goodness of heart that Anne Frank spoke of in her diary. In doing so, together, we can help chase away the long and terrible shadow that the crime of genocide has cast on humankind. Thank you.